Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mike Kollin at MikeKollin.com. Okay, so what are we going to do today? Alright, so today we're going to talk about a strategy, a series of steps that I've developed over the years and put together, okay? And what this will do, it will give you direction to give meaning to your life, and so you can move in a direction and start getting things done. So why are we going to do this? To show you, to prove to you that actually being successful in life is actually really easy when you understand a few key steps. So how we're going to do that is we're going to listen to this video and I'm going to break it down for you. And at the end, if you have any questions or you want to know, you have any what if questions, just go ahead and ask them in the description box or in the comment boxes, and I'll do my best to answer them. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. First, we're going to talk about the meaning, about how we give meaning to life. I'm going to give you a shortened version of that. The second part of this, we're going to go over 4 things, okay? 2 of them, actually 3 of them, I broke down in the video just before this. And that video is about obsession. Obsession is your power. That's the video right before this one. So for the first 2 or 3 pieces, rules, number 2 definitions, number 3 obsession, I'm going to go over those briefly in this video. And then we're going to go over how to give the meaning. And at the very end of it, what we're going to do is I'm going to teach you a very simple process. I mean, really simple, that will give you a way to give a really powerful meaning to life that will rocket launch you into the future and get you on your path. Okay, so now bouncing off of that very last piece. That last piece is the 4th step that I mentioned right before that, okay? So bouncing off of that, here's one thing you have to keep in mind. We are all on different paths and at different points on our paths. So here's what I want you to keep in mind. Your path is not their path, so do not interrupt their path. In other words, don't tell them, oh no, life isn't a dance, life is a burden, or life is a mystery, or so when I get to explaining like the very last piece, the technique on how to give your life meaning, you have your own definition, your own direction, okay? It'll make sense when we get to it. So one thing you need to do is you need to really respect other people's what they believe the meaning of life is, because that's where they're at in life. It's kind of like a kid. If he's only in 3rd grade math, you cannot expect him to suddenly jump to college level trigonometry. It's not going to happen. And you may have learned things that they missed when they were younger, or they haven't learned yet in this lifetime. So the person might be 40, 45, 50 years old or older, and you're thinking, well, they should know this. No. We all learn different things at different times in life. They probably learned things that you haven't learned yet. So allow people to be in their own space, going at their own pace in their own direction. In other words, let go. Just let them go down their path. It is absolutely healthy and okay to realize other people are at different places in life, on their path, on their journey, and in their spiritual growth. So they might give a meaning to life right now that absolutely fits what they have to learn, and go down that path long enough, and then at one point they may take on another definition and or meaning of life. Again, you'll understand this at the very end of this video. Fact I'll give you 2 right now. So I was at a Tony Robbins seminar when we were learning this, and he said basically you give the definition or the meaning to your life. And so we had a lady come up there, and he had a couple ladies actually, and there's like, well, what's the meaning of your life? Now this lady was a dancer. I think she was a ballerina, and I forget what else she was, but she did, I think it was modern dance, etc. And she just, the way she walked up with, you know, I think she was a jazz dancer is what it was. They have a certain way they hold their bodies and their hips, and she just says life is, and she said it with full like expression, life is a dance. And the crowd cheered, and it wasn't just that, it was just her, like her energy was like almost like a sunburst of energy, just bursting full of joy. Now to her, life is a dance. To you, it might not be that. And that's okay. And then another lady came up and said, life is a mystery. And Tony goes, really? Well, why is that? And then she gave her a reason why. And then another lady came up and she said, life is a dream. Now he called up a couple other people, and two of them happened to be guys. And one guy goes up on stage, and they're all lined up, and so this was the next guy in line. And he goes, sir, what is life to you? He goes, honestly, he goes, life sucks. And Tony goes, wow, that's going to lead you in a very powerful direction. And the whole crowd started laughing. And then the guy goes, well, no, I'm serious. He goes, honestly, my life sucks. And he goes, the whole reason I came here is someone told me, you know, that you could help and blah, blah, blah. And he goes, yes, I can. So he goes on to the next guy. And I think the guy said, life is a pain in the ass. And so Tony said the same thing, like, wow, that's not a good direction to go in. The crowd, something like that. And the crowd just bust up laughing. And I'm going to give you a little something, by the way. And Tony Robbins said, I want to ask you something personal. If you don't want to answer it, you don't have to. But here's the deal. A lot of people don't realize how powerful your beliefs are. And remember, beliefs are not real, but they will have an actual impact on your life. So the first guy Tony had asked, he said, have you ever said that life sucks before? He goes, oh yeah. He goes, I say that pretty much every day, probably about 5, 10, 15 times a day. So here's the deal. It's like the meaning that you give to life, it's kind of like, it's like you're looking in whatever direction that is. So if you think life sucks and someone comes along like, hey, let me show you how to make life great, you're going to be like, yeah, whatever, you're going to tune them out. You're not going to listen. Yeah, I'm not interested. Or you're not going to buy their product or book or whatever. So it leads you away from whatever. See, if you really believe this is the way life is, if you really believe that, in fact, I bet I've even screamed this in the past, but I've heard other men go, this is just the way life is. And I've had clients do this, and I would scream back at them, no, this is the way life is for you. And I would ask them, I would say, have you ever come across anyone else in life where they say life is awesome, life is amazing, life is a journey, life is a dance, life is a whatever? And he goes, well, yeah, of course. I go, what are their lives like? He goes, well, for some reason their lives are amazing and they're fun and they're this and they're adventurous. And yeah, that's another one. Life is an adventure. So I said, is it possible that the reason why your life is the way it is because you have this belief in this big image that this is the way life is, and therefore your life sucks? So he was willing to explore this, okay? And so he said, yeah, I'm willing to learn. So here's the other one. So the guy that said life's a pain in the ass, Tony asked him, he goes, have you ever had any medical problems back there? And he's like, oh yeah. He goes, and I'm just going to say it, the guy has had hemorrhoids for most of his life. Now I've worked with people using timeline therapy, and you bring them back to the very, very, very first event. And this guy, and I believe Tony Robbins did something similar. He didn't do timeline therapy, but he brought him back in his memories. And the guy said, honestly, this started about a year after I started saying life was a pain in the ass. So when you go back in your memories and you heal it, and then you give it a new definition, all of a sudden, believe it or not, but your body can physically change and heal from things like this. Okay, so I'm going to go into those 4 steps, but I want to give you one step, which really is step number 3, obsession. I want to give you this step for probably the pre-step before the 4 steps. So we'll call this like a pre-step, but it's a very powerful step. And it's what Think and Grow Rich is all about. You need to read that book at least 10 times. Read it once every 6 months, okay? Or once every year at least. That's Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. The number one thing is know what you want. Absolutely know what you want. Alright, for example, let's take me. So I was going through these NLP trainings. I hadn't quite finished, so I'd been actually going to certification courses for a couple of years, but then I got involved with this one company that certifies you, okay? And I had gone through 1 year of training to different 2-week and 5-week trainings, a couple 3-day trainings, etc. So then the next year I was going to go to the final 5-week training. So I went and got my business license downtown. I went and put an ad out in the local paper and then one in Sacramento, which was about 30 minutes away, and boom, I got a client. I was just thrilled through the roof. And then it took another week or 2 to get another client. I was thrilled again. And to me, I was just like, this is amazing. The sessions went really well. And my girlfriend comes along. Now, mind you, I just got a business license. I had just gotten certified as the master practitioner in timeline therapy, NLP, hypnosis, etc. and some other things I was trained in. So I was just launching my practice, okay? And my girlfriend comes along about the 5th month or 6th month. And she goes, why don't you just quit? Why don't you just give up? And she said this more than once, but I remember looking at her like, what? Like, why would you say that? And it really upset me. So here's the deal though, is like, she could convince me to sell my car. She could convince me to get a different haircut. But I was like, no, I'm not going to quit this. I like, I don't even think I said this part, but I loved what I did. Man, you have no idea. I was so fascinated. I was hooked, literally like a drug. It was an obsession. For 12 years, I studied for a minimum of an hour to 3, sometimes 4 hours a day, every single day, including Christmas, New Year's Eve, my birthday, Thanksgiving, everything. I never missed. Even when we would take a weekend trip, I would take books and audio with me. I swear to God, I'm not kidding. Alright, in the past video that I made, I don't know when I made it, a week ago, 2 weeks, maybe longer. It was about this kid in high school wrestling where the coach said, hey, I heard you doing this new psychology. Do you think you can help this kid out? And I'm like, yeah, sure. And so I joined the team as an assistant coach. I brought my headphones, my audio cassette, and I brought a small pack of tapes, and I brought a book with me. And I read one of the chapters when the kids were weighing in or just after the weigh-ins, and then I put on the audio, and I went kind of around the building. We're at this high school to kind of gather my thoughts, and I was really listening to what he was saying. And I thought, that's what I'm going to do with this kid. So once I had it in my head, I went over there and I pulled the kid aside. Hey, let me talk to you for a minute. And I took him through these steps. And yes, he won the tournament. So that was the kid that had never won a single match in 3 years of wrestling. 3 1/4. So I came in about the 4th week of the wrestling season. My point, I was obsessed. I never missed a day. So, how will you know when you're obsessed? Because no matter how many bad days you have, you keep going back to it. Even when your girlfriend, your husband, your wife tells you, oh, you should just quit. You're just like, you look at them like they're being preposterous. Like you're just like weird. Like, what are you talking about? You just can't stop, no matter what. It doesn't matter if you have 2 bad years in a row, okay? It does not matter. You keep going back to it. Now, here's a really powerful lesson. So one thing we learned from Tony Robbins is a lot of people get their their purpose mixed up with the vehicle. So here's what I mean. When I was in 10th or 11th grade, I got this huge trophy on the wrestling team for most inspirational. I literally didn't even know what that word meant. So here I was, like we had a 2-day tournament, and this one kid had gotten pinned by this one guy. So the next day you go against the same teams. It was kind of a unique tournament because normally you don't do that. So here he wasn't even getting ready for his next match. I'm like, dude, are you going to warm up or what? Come on, Steve, let's wrestle around. You got to warm up, you got to stretch, let's wrestle around first. He goes, what's the use? I was like, dude, he's going to kick your ass if you don't get ready. I mean, come on, bro. This guy's good. He goes, I know, Mike. He pinned me yesterday. I think he got pinned like in 30 seconds. Okay, so really, it might have, actually, I think it was just under a minute. So long story short, it took a while, and we had talked for about 5 or 10 minutes. No. And finally I said, all right, I tell you what. You go out there and you wrestle for 1 minute, and if you don't want to wrestle after that, you flip over and let him pin you, and you can just quit. And he goes, but the coach will get mad. I go, no, I'll walk over to the coach and tell him that you and I had this deal. I said, but when you go out there, you got to fight your ass off. You got to do everything in your power not to get pinned for 1 minute, because I think he got pinned at 59 seconds. So we wanted to see if he could go just 1 minute and 1 second beyond that. So he was like, well, I can do that. I know I can do that. I was like, well, okay, now he's getting excited. And then I said, well, if you get past the 1 minute, 1 second mark, well, why not see if you could make it to the end of the 2 minute round? He goes, you know what? I'll do that. And I go, if you really don't want to wrestle after that, I go, Steve, just quit. And again, I'll tell the coach. He goes, you know what? All right, you got a deal. So we shake hands. He goes out. The ref goes, come on, let's go. He goes out there on the mat, absolutely fired up. And the other guy's looking like, oh, what the hell? Because the other guy was a senior. I think Steve was a sophomore. Steve went out there and not only lasted past the first minute, he ended up turning around and he pinned the guy. Or he either pinned the guy or he won the entire match by 1 point. Either way, he won the match. And we went absolutely berserkers. So my senior year, I won the award Most Inspirational for the second time. This was I think it was about 2.5, 3 feet tall, with a big ball at the top, and all the people who won it, their names were engraved on it, going all the way back to 1970 or whatever. So I finally asked the coach, and I'm like, I don't get it. What is this? What does it mean? He goes, oh, well, this kid died back then, and, we made this award for him. I'm like, yeah, okay, so I don't get it. Like, what are you awarding me for? Because some kid died? He goes, no. He goes, it means most inspirational. I'm like, what does that word mean? And they all started to laugh. He goes, Mike, you were like the most inspirational kid on the team. You were always firing people up. So here's the purpose of sharing that story. When I got into college, I kind of got lost a little bit. I didn't know if I wanted to be a psychology major, or if I wanted to play football or join the wrestling team. I mean, I was kind of like spinning. I didn't have direction. And then, you hear teachers say, oh, you've got to have purpose, or someone, hey, read this book on purpose. If you have your purpose, then you got it made. Well, we get the vehicle mixed up with the purpose. I thought, well, what is the perfect sport? Is it boxing? Is it kickboxing? Is it wrestling? Is it football? Is it racing? Like, what am I supposed to do? Am I supposed to get a degree in psychology? Like, am I supposed to not play sports anymore? Here's the deal. Those are all the vehicles. Being a psychologist, being a wrestling coach, joining the wrestling team. All of those things are the vehicle where you can express your purpose. So let's say your purpose is inspiring and motivating people. Well, you can do that as a speaker. You can do that as a therapist. You can do that as a dietitian. You can do that as a personal trainer. You can do that as a boxing coach. You can do that as a boxer. You can do that as a high school math teacher. So those are all different vehicles where you can express your purpose in life. So don't think like, see, I got the vehicles mixed up with what I thought my purpose was. I thought, well, my purpose is being a kickboxer. No, my purpose is being a wrestler. That's why ping pong. No, I could have done any one of those and it would have absolutely emotionally fulfilled me and gave me meaningful life by doing it and expressing my purpose through them. Okay, so that's number one, purpose, okay? So here's the 4 set of steps I'm going to take after that, okay? So I'm going to start out with one, even though we already did one. So number one, know the rules. I went over this in the last video, super quick. The more you know the rules of the game, whether it's you're a lawyer, a business person, like knowing the business rules is very important, because you'll be much more successful in business once you know them. So number one, absolutely know the rules. They give you a massive advantage. Number two, definitions. The more you know the definitions of your profession, of whatever it is you're doing, the better off you're going to be. Again, I did this in the last video and I broke that down a lot better. One of the examples was math class. I moved from Vacaville to Napa in the middle of the semester, and I started getting bad grades in math, and I was a straight A student. The teacher pulled me aside like, hey, did you read chapter 1 and 2 like I told you? Which they had done earlier in the quarter that I missed, right? And I was like, no, actually I didn't. He goes, well, that's why you're struggling. He goes, trust me, read those really good, study them, and I'm going to give you a test, after class on Friday. I was like, okay. So I actually read them every day at lunch and at home, okay? And then he gave me a test, and it was just 10 questions, and I got them all right. He was, okay, now watch what happens in the next week's test. And sure enough, we were on like chapter 6 at that point. And because I understood that the word and, so 1 and 1 equals 2. See, before I didn't know the difference between, let's say, 2 times 2 versus 2 and 2. I thought 2 times, well, actually that's not good because they come up to be the same. So let's do 3. So 3 times 3 equals 9, but 3 and 3 equals 6, because the word and means plus, and the word times means like the X symbol, like multiplication. So another word is the word is. So 1 plus 1 is 2. I didn't know what that word meant, so all of a sudden I'm reading this jargon in algebra going like, what does this mean? And I was lost. It's because I didn't know the definition of that math class. Sorry, I didn't know the definition or meanings of the words in that level of math. So once I learned those, all of a sudden I started getting straight A's, and math started becoming easy again. So number one, absolutely master the rules. And absolutely number two, master the definitions of the words in your profession, and I promise you, you will go far. Number three, follow your obsession. Now, one of the ways you do this is, let's say you're just sitting there watching television, and all of a sudden you're like, man, I want to get some ice cream at Cold Stone ice cream place, right? It's kind of like 31 flavors, but a lot better. And the reason why you're supposed to follow that like urge is because you might meet someone there that teaches you something or says something, and all of a sudden something you've been trying to learn in class or in life, it clicks and it makes sense. Or that might become someone who opens the door for you, or someone who helps you get your business started, or who knows. Start following that gut feeling or that bliss. Like you're like, hey man, I want to get some pizza today, or I want to go down to the beach today, and just especially when it kind of comes out of the clear blue sky. If you don't have anything else to do, follow that and watch what happens. You're going to start bumping into people. You might meet that special someone, etc., etc. The other reason why you start following that gut feeling, that bliss, like something like you just really want to go do something, it'll start teaching you how to follow your obsession. So following your obsession is, for example, I hated, when we were little kids, we had fish tanks. My brother Gary was kind of the leader of this, and we had to buy drops. And why are my fish dying? I was, dude, did you put the drops in? I'm like, no. So I was pretty young. I was like 6 or 7 years old. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. And so I remember after those fish tanks, I was like, I'm never going to get fish tanks again, because it was really kind of I didn't like it. It was a pain in the butt. Then I had a friend about 10 years ago, dude, come and look at my fish tank, man. It's awesome. And I'm like, yeah, whatever. It's 55 gallon. He's just like, look at the fish. I've got this fish and gouramis, and I've got this and that. I'm like, oh, cool, man. And I really did not care. So then one day I went to my haircutter's an hour earlier, and she's like, Mike, you're early by now. It's like, oh, no shit. Well, I didn't really have anything else to do. I didn't want to drive all the way back home. So I thought, you know what? There's a Ross shopping store. So I'll just, go around the corner, go in there, just goof around. And I saw this big vase. It was probably about 4 gallons. It was about 2 feet tall or something like that. Clear glass. And I was oh yeah, I remember. My hair cutter has these vases on each one of the girls' tables, whatever you call it, in front of them. And they're about a gallon and a half, maybe something like that, maybe 2 gallons. And I remember thinking, like, and I was like, you should get some goldfish or these little whatever fish and put them at the bottom and let them swim around. I go, they can actually live in that. Because they always, like, change the water and put fresh water and stuff. I go, you just give them a little food. I go, they'll be fine. It'll be really good for the plant, etc. No, Michael, we're not going to do that. And I used to bug them about that. And I remember one day she goes, why don't you do it? I'm like, well, because I don't buy flowers. So then here I am, an hour early, and it's like, all right, so I went to Ross and I was goofing around. I saw this huge vase. Oh man, that would make an awesome fish tank. Because most fish tanks are like those square rectangle things. This was kind of like round, and it went up, and it was like almost like it went straight up at a widening angle. It got wider and wider. It went up at a kind of a thick, heavy base. So sure enough, I went to the pet store, got this really cheap filter because it was a really small tank. I think it was like in our vase, about 3.5 gallons or something like that. And they gave me this little thing to put on the side. It just kind of drips the water and sucks it in, etc. It was really cheap. It was like $15 or something. I bought some gravel. Boom, started the fish tank. So I remember you had to let because back in the day, now they have, what's it called? They have chlorine mixed with ammonia, and they bind it, so now it's called chloramine, and that will kill fish. Now, when you bind those two, it stays in the water a lot longer. So the stuff you get at your sink, basically this chloramine, it's just chlorine and ammonia combined. It stays in the water system, like in the pipes and stuff, for like a week or 10 days. I forget how long, but it lasts for a lot longer, and therefore it kills bad bacteria and keeps the water healthy for humans or whatever, except for the ammonia and chlorine are kind of bad for you. So back in the day, all you had to do was wait about 24 hours because it was just ammonia, and the ammonia would escape literally overnight. And you could put fish in there. I remember, some fish would live, some would die. Like, oh, you should put these drops in. And I didn't know what those drops were, so I waited like 15 days or something. I put the fish in there, and they freaking died. I'm like, what the hell, man? They're like, you really should put some plants in there, dude. I'm like, why? Like, well, it'll help eat the ammonia and the nitrates and the nitrates. I'm like, what the hell's that? So all of a sudden, my scientific brain clicks in. So I put a plant in there, maybe 2. And they said, you need to let the water sit longer. I'm like, why? They're like, well, it's going through a cycle where the bacteria's got to build up, and that eats the nitrate and ammonia and the nitrite, which sounds like nitrate, but it's nitrite. And I'm like, what? And he goes, yeah, it's like a cycle it has to go through, and it usually takes about 30 days or more to really to get enough bacteria because bacteria eats the ammonia, which eats the nitrate and the nitrate. And 2 of them are like really bad for the fish. The other one's actually not as bad, but it's a whole cycle. Now, one thing I learned at a young age, I remember this, some coaches would say, hey, if you're going to my dad would say this. He's like, if you're going to do something, do it with all your heart and all your soul. Otherwise, don't do it because you're going to half-ass and you're not going to enjoy it, and you're not going to be as good at it. And most importantly, you're not going to learn the lessons you were supposed to learn. Well, when fish kept dying, I got more determined. I'm like, what the hell is going on here? Like, well, did you put bacteria in there? I'm like, well, no. What do you mean bacteria? Well, this stuff stinks. And I was like, what the hell is that? He goes, no, it just stinks for a couple hours. That's it. You got to put this in every time you do a water change, a big water change, or when you first start a tank. I'm like, okay. And then you're like, then it was like, well, you got to put it in like for 7 days or 10 days in a row before you let the fish in, and blah, blah, blah. And then even then you should let it sit for another 30 days. And so I was learning all this stuff. Now, I'm going to tell you something. I had this vision that I kept getting, and it really didn't make any sense because it was kind of like I was looking through water. Now, okay, by the way, this was about a year before I got these damn fish tanks. Really, it was the very first one, the vase that kind of went up and got wider and wider as it went up. I was laying back on my couch one day, and I was looking up through the vase because my head was right next to the table, and I was like, oh my God, this is exactly, picture perfect, exactly the vision that I kept seeing, and it didn't make any sense because it was like I was looking through glass and looking through water. I was like, what is this? So I kind of had like a deja vu moment. The other part of it is this. I learned so much when it came to working with clients, understanding how we develop, understanding how we make shifts and changes, and how everything is a cycle. I mean, there's so much that I learned from these fish tanks. I dove into these fish tanks for about 3 years, and next thing you know, I've got like a 55-gallon tank, a 38-gallon tank. I had a little breeder tank, and then I had that vase, and I had all this other stuff going on, like a little baby shrimp tank in my kitchen. I mean, I kind of got out of control, but I realized there was a time when it's like, I'm done. And when I got to that point, I had realized I had learned so much that applied to life and to work. And then I went on to the next thing. So if you've noticed my history, everything I did from a little kid, little young age, I put my heart and soul into it, because only when you do that do you really learn the deep, deep lessons. Now, give your life a meaning, and it will take you in that direction. So way back then during Tony Robbins' thing, I was such a serious person since the age of like 5 years old, or maybe 7 years old, second grade. I was like this militant little kid. I had to get straight A's. I had to be the captain of the football team. I had to win. I had to this. I had to that. And I was burned out. I remember I was burned out, and everyone there was for motivation, this and this and that. And I remember this other, one of the guys that said life sucked, I think he was the one who changed it to life is a vacation. And I was like, man, can we do that? And I was like, oh, I don't care anymore, because I was burned out in life. I was burned out working hard. So I was like, life is a vacation. So next thing you know, watch this, literally within months, I would have a client call me, say I read your book or I saw your website or whatever, and they would fly me out to Kansas, or they'd fly me out to Washington, D.C., or they'd fly me out to Southern California or wherever. Oh yeah, and before that, actually a couple years before that, I started going after going to the NLP trainings, and that's when, and here's the weirdest thing, like I didn't have money, but all of a sudden whenever I had an NLP training I really wanted to go to, all of a sudden I wouldn't say I found money, but all of a sudden money would show up. I'd get a better way to make money, a faster way to make money. All of a sudden things started falling into place, and next thing you know, I'm flying to Hawaii for 5 weeks, I'm flying to Costa Mesa for 5 weeks, I'm flying to San Diego for a weekend training, I'm flying to the Pennsylvania for 5-week training. So all of a sudden life was a vacation, because whenever you go to these sites, especially the San Diego one, the Costa Mesa one, which is Southern California on the beach, and then the Hawaii one, etc. It was like, what do you do before class? They don't start class till 1 p.m., so you go to the beach all day. You go to the beach about 9 or 10 in the morning, you lay down, and then you go swimming, then you take a trip halfway around the island, or to a certain spot, and you go surfing, or you do whatever, and then you come back and you go to the training, and then after like 8 p.m., they let you go out, and then you go to dinner, or you go to some like really cool place, club or restaurant. It was a vacation. That's the way life works. So if you're going around saying life sucks, or life is, I don't know, because a lot of us have been through hell, and I have a feeling a lot of you may have been putting that on yourself. Here's what I want you to do. I'm going to give you a couple like that I've already given you. Life is an adventure. Life is a vacation. Life is awesome. Here's my definition for me, my meaning. I'm awesome. I say it all the time on Facebook. I say it to people. People are like, oh, you're cocky. I don't even care, because it has absolutely changed my attitude. So that's the I am. I am awesome. What is your I am, and what is your life is? So life is great. Life is awesome. Life is a trip. Life is a vacation. Life is a dance. Life is victory. Think about it, and then write it down, and then go with it. So another one is life is a gift. That's something when I went through my awakening that God gave to me. So life is a gift that was meant to be enjoyed. So to me, what does that second half meant to be enjoyed mean? It means living life to the fullest. That's the meaning that I gave to the second half of that gift that God gave me. Life is a gift that was meant to be enjoyed. That's why God created life. You can give your meaning to the second half of what does it mean life is a gift that was meant to be enjoyed. Maybe it means to just take it easy, relax, etc., etc. Remember, you're the one who gives the meaning to whatever it is, whatever phrase, word, etc. This is your life. Now live it. By the way, if you have a group of people and you want to fly me out to do like the 2-day training, the emotional grounding techniques, and also the second day is why men just don't get it, I will fly out there wherever you're at, okay? Alright, so the other one is, if you really want to make me happy, buy one of my books. I don't know what it is, but when people buy my books from my website, so I've got Crack the Female Code for Men, I've got the Ultimate Package for Men, which has the 3 main books for men, Get the Girl, Keep the Girl, Sex Signals, and the main book, Crack the Female Code. And for women, we have 2 books, Why Men Just Don't Get It, and Every Woman's Battle, The Need for Love and Emotional Fulfillment. Buy a book. It makes me super happy. I'm serious. And yes, life coaching, training, coaching for any of the stuff that I teach on here is available, okay? That's it, guys. God bless you. Click subscribe, click the like button, make a comment, and if you want, go ahead and make a donation. There's a PayPal link right there in the description box below the video. See you guys soon. Bye.